Welcome back to Sarah Straight Up, ladies and gentlemen. Today's conversation sits in a space that most of us don't really fully understand. We often think about law as something that reacts to problems, but it's so much more than that. In reality, the most experienced lawyers and people in this space are not just simply resolving disputes. They prevent those disputes. They structure those disputes. They ensure that they walk the walk with their clients from the outset, and they guide decisions before they even escalate. This is a space that people don't understand, and it shapes a lot of outcomes behind the scenes. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Fatima Balfaqeeh, who is a founder and managing partner of Balfaqeeh Advocates and Legal Consultants. She's a UAE-qualified lawyer. She sits as an arbitrator and a dispute resolution specialist with over 2 decades of experience across legal, commercial, and governance sectors. From senior roles in government and semi-government entities in Abu Dhabi to becoming one of the first and few independent female arbitrators in the UAE. Recently, having been appointed to serve on the International Centre for Settlement of Investment Disputes, Fatima has a very celebrated background that we're proud of and operates at the intersection of law, business and decision-making. She's a very good friend of mine. She's a fabulous lawyer. She's an excellent strategist, and we're delighted to have her on Sarah Straight Up. Fatima, a huge welcome to you today.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're very welcome. I'm going to rewind and ask you to tell our audience about how you got into this profession, because you didn't take a traditional legal path. What stands out to me, and I'm sure to many about your journey, is the pure kind of difference, or not difference, the mix of background you have that you bring to the table. Your journey didn't start traditionally. You've moved through procurement, governance and operations before going into legal. So you don't look at disputes simply from a legal lens. You bring so much more to the table. You're looking at it from a business and an operational perspective, and I want to start there. How does your background and your path shape the way you look at something that lands on your desk today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today,
Not
first
at
of
all.
all. And I think it is becoming more and more evident that it is important for lawyers to look at law in a more comprehensive manner. I would say that it has served me so well to have different backgrounds and different experiences moving throughout my career, starting to study finance and business at the beginning, my first bachelor degree. I've worked in projects accountancy for a bit, and then I moved towards supply chain and procurement, where I studied my master's in international business as well. And then created a career there where it moved me very nicely towards governance, compliance, and before you know it, I was dealing with claims and disputes and arbitrations and negotiating contracts with the legal team. And I've always been very passionate about law. I've always knew that eventually I want to do something in that space. I was not sure what it is. And then after I started working with the legal teams, with the in-house legal teams in the government and semi-government entities, a couple of GCs kind of sat me down and they're like, Fatima, just make the jump.
It's time.
It's time. Go study law and get your degree and really get your teeth into commercial law. My gateway was actually mediation and arbitration and claim management and dispute management, and trying not to let a dispute escalate. And for me, that still is a very important concept, even when I am a lawyer, although it's a little bit counterproductive or disingenuous to say as a lawyer, oh, I don't want disputes to happen. But truly, there's so much value for me as a lawyer, for my firm, and for my clients to try to sincerely avoid disputes altogether. And something that we still kind of pride ourselves as, Balfaqeeh and advocates, that it's a pillar on how we deal with our clients.
Absolutely, and I really like that refreshing and honest approach, because let's face it, as litigators, sometimes we do ourselves out of business by trying to settle matters, but that's what clients need and want, and your mindset is absolutely correct. So not disingenuous, but very, very honest to say that and say, well, I want the best for the client, and that's what we stand for. And that nicely leads me to the next question, because I know a lot of our audience and generally people, when they think of lawyers, they think we're in court, we're resolving matters, things have kicked off. But actually a lot is about preventing that from happening and being preventive rather than reactionary. So how do you approach that? How do you stop something from going nuclear in the courts?
I think it starts from the beginning, the building block of any entity. And it's a culture really stemming from the leadership really wanting to avoid disputes altogether. So when I sit down with my clients, obviously the perfect scenario is when a company is just starting out and you are shaping the strategy, legally speaking, commercially speaking, to try to put all of the controls in place, policies, procedures, mission, vision of the company to really ensure that there are enough breaks into the system and in the process that we're trying to avoid disputes altogether. But most of the time, the clients come to you after a very horrific event that happened within the entity, and they had a very big and expensive lesson learned. And they tell you, okay, now we know that we don't want to repeat this again. Can you please help us structure the company in a way, or restructure the company in a way that this will never happen again? Yeah. And it goes to really going back to very, very ABC basics, building blocks of is your policy and procedure there? Is your delegation of authority there? Does your contracts, are they drafted in a way that is really fair to both parties and balanced? There is so much to be said about having balanced contracts. Most of the instinct of any company is to make the contract for their side and not the other side. That is a recipe for disaster. So making a balanced suite of contracts, ensuring that the employees are well trained, because some organizations, they have the best policies, best procedures, the latest systems, AI, everything that you need. The employees are not trained. So just doing a health check and gap analysis in the organization and understanding where they are and how to move from that incident onto the future of having fewer and fewer disputes.
And I think that's fabulous kind of insight and advice, because you've hit, three different verticals that are very, very important. Number one, often legal is a reluctant spend, but it ought not to be. Get us involved earlier, get Fatima involved, let her come and shape your future rather than, have an expensive lesson because something's gone wrong. But we do understand that certainly companies, when they're setting up or starting out, maybe legal spends are last on their mind. They've got so many things to do. Secondly, there's no point having everything in place unless you train your employees and they know what's going on and ensure that those who are enforcing it know what the law or the policies and procedures say, and that's hugely important. And thirdly, a good contract lawyer like yourself is always going to draft to incentivize the signatures from both sides to get done, to execute the agreement. So many clients will complain that the reason agreements don't get done is because lawyers prevent agreements from being signed because there's too many musts and shalls and ifs and buts, and it's all very one-sided. So I think how you've kind of spelt that out on your approach is fabulous, because it deals with so many different aspects. Aside from organizations not getting you involved early enough, where else do you think things go wrong and then they end up in court? And it could be things like ego or driven by different reasons. Where do organizations get it wrong?
I think we see it day after day how ego is is really the killer for any organization, because the parties, and I've heard it in a different interview that you have done actually, that the parties might have a case and they might really believe that it is in their favor. But the type of court is not really helpful, or the way that they have documented their claim is not really helpful. And the whole case is lost. And then they come to you as a lawyer and they go like, oh, how did I lose? Kind of like written an admission here, or, kind of wrote a WhatsApp message that you really should not have written. And when I started with litigation, one of the senior lawyers gave me a piece of advice. And he said, the adversary of your client is one, but your actual client is the other adversary for you.
Yeah.
Because they will not really tell you what they have done wrong. they'll just tell you how they have been wronged, woe is me,
Yeah.
and this is what happened to me, and can you help me? And then in courts, especially here in the UAE, where we don't have a discovery phase,
Yeah.
in court you will be shocked with some documents that are thrown your way during the litigation that kind of flips the whole scenario.
That your client
on its
forgot
head.
to tell you about.
Yeah. Or I had one client who actually told us, "Oh, it's your job to extract the information out of me," and you go like, "What is going on?" But the culture of how to litigate is not really sometimes there with the litigants themselves. And what kind of trust level that they have with their lawyer. I am bound by my ethical stance and ethical obligations towards you, Mr. Client. You need to tell me everything, right and wrong, that got us here. But unfortunately, it's not always there. And then the reluctancy of settling, because settlement is seen as a weak person's approach. Settlement can happen at any time during litigation, at the very beginning, and sometimes even after the award is issued.
Absolutely.
Whether it's in arbitration or in litigation, where you're actually trying to get all of your cash in and paying a small price for it. And we see clients kind of digging their heel in the ground, saying, "No, this is my money, this is my right, I want my full right." Okay, do you want it kind of broken down into 30 installments?
Yeah.
Or do you want it like at one go?
One-off, yeah.
So you kind of see all of those smaller practices, and I think like any litigator anywhere in the world will share the same sentiments.
Absolutely. And I think you're right that sometimes, he who comes to table, I'm not showing my cards, I'm not showing weakness. If I try to settle, they're going to think that I don't have a good case. But actually, if you look at the settlements that take place and at what stage they take place and the cost it's been to the party, I mean, who's a sensible one if you've managed not to pay thousands and hundreds of thousands to litigate something and got a settlement that, okay, both parties might not be very happy with, but the settlement's got done. One party thinks they could have got more, the other thinks they could have got less, but a good lawyer will get that done. And the only ones, let's face it, who are out of pocket if a settlement is done is us. And the only ones who are winning if it goes all the way to court is us. And I say that to the clients.
100%.
So I think it's a fabulous approach. I want to move to governance and decision making, and governance is increasingly becoming more and more important, especially in a jurisdiction like this where we have huge kind of even family businesses, and as they're going down the generations, how important governance generally is. We had loose structures before, but it's become very, very streamlined for good reasons. And you've worked inside institutions and systems where decisions carry lots of weight. They carry weight financially, legally, and operationally. Governance is something either people don't understand properly or they don't want to talk about because they don't understand it. So let's break it down for our audience. From your experience, what does good governance look like in real life in a company, and why is it so important?
So governance is something that has to work for your organization, not something that will work against your organization. Unfortunately, I've seen the two sides of poorly done governance, and it's not poor because of the end product, it's poor because it's not fit for purpose. The first question that you need to ask yourself before you put a governance structure in place is, what is the company I'm putting the structure for, and what is it that they want to achieve? It cannot be that I'm taking, and this is something that, and you know me, I'm always a straight shooter. It cannot be that I take the same templates,
Of course,
and apply it across the road to all of my clients. And unfortunately, we see big entities that does that, So you will have some governance documents and company structure documents that are only based on ADGM or DFC because the lawyer who have been advising is only well versed in English law.
yes.
Or you see company structures and governance that have been done only for UAE law because the lawyer is only well versed in their jurisdiction. You really have to widen your horizon and understand all of the jurisdictions that you're working with in order to give your client the best outcome and the best governance structure. There is no point of having the most elaborate and beautiful set of policies and procedures, and they will be parked aside because they are unimplementable. So first of all, you need to understand the business very well. Ask questions. I know it is not in the nature of lawyers to kind of sit down and humble themselves a little bit to say, can you please explain to me what is this business? What does it do? It sounds Chinese at the beginning for anybody, and then it starts kind of having a bit of clarity. So it does not make any sense to have the most amazing elaborate governance structure, and it cannot be utilized for your business or for your client's business because it is absolutely not fit for purpose. You have to find out what is the business, at what stage is the business. Is it at the beginning? Is it very mature? Is it complex? Are you taking it out of restructuring and nearly bankruptcy? Where are they exactly? And then you have to create checks and balances across the way. There are some organizations that they need to be super centralized. There are certain organizations that they need to be very adaptive and extremely decentralized. I cannot say, oh, centralization is the best thing, and then apply it on everybody. If it's an R&D organization or something that has to do with technology, that would be a killer. You will actually kill the company if you centralize. And it cannot be a manufacturing, health and safety driven organization and you decentralize. You'll get people dead, at one point. So you really have to see what type of a business is this. Create the correct structure for it, create the correct accompanying governance structure for it, and then policies and procedures. There are certain clients who I have documents and documents of policies and procedures, and there are certain clients I have for them 3-4 pages of a visual of a policy and procedure, and that is more than enough for them. So I think governance usually is the unexciting side of law. So people try to avoid it and kind of go like, it's not really litigation, it's not arbitration, it's not something that you kind of can sharpen your tools in as a lawyer, but it can spare everybody so much if done correctly.
Absolutely. I really like the approach you've given, which is get to know your client properly, put yourself in their shoes, understand their business, understand exactly what they want to achieve, and then advise them rather than just going in and saying, oh, this is what you need. And that would be the wrong approach. So I think that tailored approach is what sets excellent lawyers apart from those who just, fishing out whatever they have to give to clients. What happens when that governance we've talked about, whether it's the few pages that a smaller organization needs or many documents that are needed by certain organizations, when that is missing in the kind of ecosystem of a company, what happens? What goes wrong?
So usually what happens is they hire a bunch of brilliant people. Each one of them comes with a wealth of experience, and each one of them kind of practices what they are used to do in their previous organization, and therefore creating a very big mismatch of what needs to be done versus what people think should be done. So your policy and procedure and your governance, consider it as your communication method with your clients, with your customers, with your employers if you're a commercial company. It is a unified message. So imagine out of the same organization, multiple messages are going out. One person thinks that they should, pay the invoice this way, not that way, and the other person disagrees. There's a huge misalignment. Usually it kind of is accompanied with a lot of cash bleeding and money bleeding of resources, and creates some sort of a chaos. And then actually talented people tend to leave. And people who stay back are people who are benefiting from this chaotic misalignment, I always coin it as the deliberate chaos syndrome in the organization, where few people are really benefiting out of this deliberate chaos, and either they're profiting or they're making their life easier, or they're getting more power or access to management. So this is something that you don't want to happen within your organization.
It doesn't work for the company.
No.
I'm going to move to arbitration. I know that you absolutely love arbitration from our numerous conversations, and it's a very, very different space from litigation. It's controlled, it's more strategic. What drew you into arbitration initially?
So as you can hear from my governance talk, is I'm a very process-oriented person.
Yes, you are.
And what I found very appealing for me in arbitration is that it is a very nice mixture between applying law and applying very robust procedure to get people to a fair judgment and give them a fair opportunity to present their case. And actually, you will find that most of the issues arising out of any arbitral proceeding, and if anybody is challenged in their award, it's because of lack of application of procedure. So for me, that is like music to my ears.
And it was a natural kind of calling for you. Plus, with your attention to detail that you give to everything you do, I think it's the perfect kind of route for you. Just for those viewers of ours who don't understand the difference, what is the difference the way arbitration awards are made compared to traditional court systems?
So I'll try to kind of summarize it very briefly. Of course, there's a lot of more details. You know, we give courses on arbitration. But if we look at it in a very succinct way, is that the parties are opting out of the courts and choosing to hire their own tribunal or judge to look at their dispute in hand. And that choice comes in with several benefits. First of all, confidentiality, where you are able to protect your organization's know-how, the details of the disputes, the amount of the contracts. You get specialized judges. In litigation, and usually the judge is applying the law, versus in arbitration, he is, yes, applying the law, but applying the generic know-how to the arbitration proceeding and to the dispute in hand. Again, in some jurisdiction, not all, it is faster than litigation, especially where jurisdictions, they have their court system really backed up with a lot of disputes. So arbitration gives them a very speedy resolution. In addition, when it comes to cross-border disputes, if I have one party in the UAE and the other party is in the UK, you have the ability to take that award and enforce it, whether it's in the UAE or in the UK, because of the New York Convention, where it allows you to carry this judgment and enforce it wherever the assets of the other party who have lost the case is. So there are a lot of benefits. It is a very similar tool to litigation, but it is more specialized. It is final. There is no appeal to it. And there's a lot of commercial sense to go into arbitration instead of litigation sometimes.
And anybody who needs to know anything more, you can reach out to Fatima about the arbitral world. Let's talk about building your own law firm, because that's something that sits very closely to my heart. Very proud of all you've achieved and what you've done. And there's a huge shift between operating inside institutions to building something of your own. It comes with highs and lows and pros and cons. Why did you decide to do that?
I always tell people the beginning was really a leap of faith. I've always knew across my career that I was building up my career and knowledge and experience to create something of my own. I've always knew that I will be a consultant of some sort. Not in my wildest dreams that I thought that I would have a law firm, to be honest, because I did not have in mind that I will study a bachelor degree in law. What I thought is, I'll get a master's in degree and do like a specialized consultancy. But as life takes you sometimes, and you have to kind of like trust your intuition and gut feeling and kind of go where the wind is taking you at the beginning, where I actually found my calling within having a law firm and creating this entity with my team and hiring people and managing them and creating opportunities and creating safe space for next generation, doing things that matter to me on a personal level, and doing things that in my youth I wish that I had the opportunities for. And what I wish that people will extend to my kids one day as well. So I'm a firm believer that you cannot change something unless you create the change within yourself and within your surrounding, and then you will find what you need in this life. So I've tried to practice this as much as I can through my firm. I'm very blessed. I'm very happy with what I have achieved. I still have a lot of plans ahead. There's a lot of good news that are coming soon. It has its ebbs and flows, as you have said.
Of course.
Some good days, some bad days, some sleepless nights, some panic attacks here and there, kind of like, am I doing the right thing? Is this the right choice? But you really have to really bet on yourself and bet on what you are creating and creating something of value. Money is a byproduct of success.
Of course.
It will come either way. You just put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward.
You roll the dice on yourself, and you've done it so well, Fatima, because you've paved the way for so many. I know how many look up to you as an inspiration, whether it's the local Emirati girls, generally women, and say, well, look how Fatima set herself up, and we aspire to do that. And it's so important to have those role models because, as you say, growing up, you're putting together what you wish you could have seen and aspired to. Let's talk about the reality in small detail of what it actually takes to build your own law firm, as well as the sweat and the blood and the late nights and the uncertainty. And sometimes we think, is this the right thing to do? But we would do nothing else.
Yeah.
So what do you need as characteristics?
So I think there is some practical advice that I can give, and then you have to really have some level of delusion to think that you can do what you're doing. So first of all, I am a firm believer that you cannot delegate your business to somebody else, especially at the beginning. You have to really take charge and build this on your own. You have to start from the smaller sized work and graduate until you become the managing partner. So I keep telling the team I've progressed into doing everything within the firm, from the work of the office boy until my actual job I understand what are the court system. I understand the requirements in the DED, in the ministry. I've went and made the first few hires. I went to the Ministry of Labor. I went to get the visas and all of that to understand fully what is the process from A to Z. After that, you have to put, as I'm preaching for my clients, you have to put a very proper structure. What kind of a business do you want to be? Do you want to be a boutique? Do you want to be a national, a regional, international? Put your vision in. If you are going ahead with no vision, you will stumble across the way, because how are you going to filter all of the opportunities that comes to you? So when opportunity comes, you have to kind of evaluate, does this kind of resonate with the vision of my firm or not, And then you have to create a brand identity. Do not underestimate the power of marketing.
Absolutely.
You have to create a very solid image of your organization. Is it going to carry your ethos, or do you want it to be separate to you? There are certain firms who have different names than their founders, The business is something, I am something else. And there are businesses that are really dependent on the character of the person themselves. So how do you carry your personality and instill it within an organization? That is also something that needs a little bit of work. You have to train your employees. You have to be on top of the new changing laws all the time, and have very sound financial decision making. If you don't feel like you can do any of those roles, then please hire the right people to complement that kind of missing link within yourselves. But I think the gateway to all of this is understanding yourself so well that you are able to see the blind sides, I know what are my blind spots, and I hire people to watch out for that, because I'm very well aware there's nobody who's perfect.
Absolutely.
So you have to kind of like work with that kind of in mind, face yourself with realities that sometimes we're not ready to see, but seek help. I've never been an avid believer of community more than now. You build your people, you build your community, and you work with them closely.
I think that's excellent advice to give to those who are thinking to kind of start out in the field. That there's a whole ecosystem that you build within your firm, and you need to understand every aspect. I 100% agree, because once you understand it, then even those who are working for you ultimately and are doing the PR or whatever they're doing, and it's taken me 6 weeks. Well, no, it only takes a week. Why is it taking you 6? So you really get into the nitty gritty. I want to move to sustainability, because that fascinates me about your work, and you kind of set yourself aside from many, because you just don't talk the talk. You're involved in sustainability. You're not just operating law. What does sustainability mean to you in your field?
So, being somebody who have worked extensively in ESG, so ESG is environmental sustainability and governance, and I think it works hand in hand because they aim to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You are trying to sustain a business to keep going. You're trying to sustain your resources. You're trying to make sure that this lasts for generations, your business, the economy, all of that. I don't think sustainability in my mind is only, oh, don't print, okay, or save the trees.
Yeah.
It goes far beyond that, you know, it's intertwined into your everyday life. So for me, ESG and especially sustainability goes hand in hand in every single thing that we spoke about today, in governance, in making sure that relationships are sustained, businesses are sustained, our resources, natural resources, economic resources as well, making sure that it is not something that is, again, not genuine. I think people can spot disingenuousness in a minute, you know. You cannot fake genuineness. If you really care about it, then you really, it's a pillar, you know. I always have fights with my team regarding something as simple as business cards, you know. So I keep telling them, no business cards, we're not going to do it. You know, I've had to cave sometimes to kind of print a very small amount.
Yeah.
But, you know, stuff in your everyday, how are you representing the organization? How are you representing yourselves? How are you trying not to be wasteful in anything you do? So I think sustainability for me goes beyond the slogans or greenwashing in any way possible. Yes, we're a part of green arbitration. I really believe in them. This is an initiative encouraging parties and arbitrators to be mindful of the environment through very simple practices. Can we do this meeting online? Do we need to travel to God knows where, you know, to do this session or hearing? Can we do a hybrid? Can we try to minimize the number of submissions? Can you not send me a physical bundle? Can we just get it electronically? So little stuff like this that I do day in, day out, that, you know, I believe plays a very big role. And usually sustainability is such a huge topic that people feel very disheartened to tackle. Like, what am I going to do with this big topic? I'm not going to save the ozone layer, you know. Yeah. But you can do your small parts and kind of keep at it. People around you will be inspired, and beforehand, you know, you're going to find a certain movement.
You translate it absolutely into practice. It's not just theory for you, and it's clear from how you've just answered that. I want to shift to women in law. You're one of the very few independent female arbitrators, certainly a local Emirati female arbitrator, and that title comes with certain realities. What has that been in practice for you? What has that experience actually properly been like for you? Has it been easy sailing to get where you are? You don't have to get into details of, you know, hurdles, but what would you want to tell people who think, oh, well, she's landed up exactly where she's supposed to be and it's just been an easy ride?
Yeah, one can wish, right? I know a lot of people come to me and tell me, oh, you're the only woman here or you're only woman there. And I've always been the only woman in a lot of tables and on a lot of meetings by virtue of what I used to do as well before. And I tell them, like, don't think that that makes me happy. I do not want to be the only one. I want to see other women. And for people who know me, know that I actively train other women from the GCC to become arbitrators. Obviously, not everybody makes it because you have to have certain inherent personality traits to do so. I try my best to create a very clear training and internship pathway within my organization to train other women. But it cannot be that I am the only one and then I'm happy with that accolade and then stop. What is it that I'm doing to ensure that other women are coming through the door? This topic, and we've discussed it many times, me and you, Sarah, this is a very loaded issue. There have been this quota mentality ingrained in all women of our generation and generations before, is that there only can be one woman in this place because, you know, the quota is fulfilled. We have the token woman, you know, versus now we kind of joke a little bit where sometimes we have to look for the token male hire, you know, within certain organizations. Yes, the starting point have been much more successful. We see a lot of women who are starting off. But what happens after 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, when they are faced into a glass ceiling?
Yeah.
How do they break through to the next phase, to becoming managing partners, to becoming women of authority, to not be defined by what choices do they have in their personal lives, whether they want to be single moms, married, not married, whatever it is that they want to lead. Why does it have to translate into your professional life? This is something, that is something else. In addition, like lately, I've been seeing something that is quite amusing, because there is a glass floor where the situation is so bad that they kind of hire a woman to kind of be the scapegoat if it did not work out.
Yeah.
So my advice for a woman, if it does not look good and it does not smell good, that don't take it. Don't take it because it's the only opportunity. Other opportunities are gonna come along. So for me, it have not been an easy route, obviously, but as challenging as it was, there were so many fantastic men and women who have supported me on the way. It makes my heart warm every time I think about those people. You know them, I know them. And they're the kind of silent soldiers in the background. And they don't want any
accolade or anything.
No,
yeah.
they don't want anything. They just want us to persevere and to pay it forward. And this is what I'm trying to do.
A lot of what you say resonates so kind of deeply with me. And that's, Fatima, why you are a leader, because you have this abundance mindset. You're not at the mindset that I've made it and that's it, I've closed the space. You're lifting people up with you, saying there's enough space for all of us.
Yes.
And I want to encourage that, you know, for all of you to come forward and to pay it back. And I think that's so important, because however controversial it is, I sometimes also believe that aside from just the quota system, sometimes women who reach a certain level are like, well, I don't need to help anyone else back up. It took me a long time to get there, and this is my space, and it becomes very competitive.
And not only that, there is some people who have noticed that, I've suffered, therefore
salvation.
everybody else has to suffer. Listen, I'm going to give opportunities, but does not mean that I will hand it over to
Absolutely.
them. You have to work hard. But you don't have to work as hard as I did, because I'm not working as hard as the other generation did.
We make it easier.
So we make it easier as we go along. We're not handing over anything to anybody, but we truly are creating the platforms, and whoever feel like they want it, they have the chance to step up. And this will be a very solid platform for them to operate in.
Well, you're paving the paths and the way for others to be able to walk much quicker or run through, and that's important until this becomes a thing of the past. And hopefully, in years to come, it will be. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but one day. You speak about progress, not perfection, and I love that as a mantra. It's a very unique mindset, especially when you're in high stakes environments, and sometimes people think, you know, come to me, or I can do everything, and it's absolute perfection. There is perfection in imperfection, and there is, as you've put, progress in ensuring that day to day you're getting better on what you're doing. How has that philosophy in itself shaped the way you work and the way you come to decisions?
So I had to learn this the hard way. I am very hard on myself. I want everything that comes out of my desk to be perfect, no mistakes. And I found out very quickly that if anybody wants to take a look at my work and with a very critical eye, they will find a mistake anyways, right? So I had to kind of step back and see what is it that I want to achieve and how do I want to achieve it. There are certain submissions that we do that are very time sensitive. So it's actually a failure to try to perfect it and not submit it on time. Noting that there will be a few minor mishaps here and there. Before, those mishaps would spend me on a spiral, you know? But now I kind of like, I keep telling myself, you know, perfection is the enemy of finishing, you know, just push forward, push forward. I take a lot of pride in what I do, so it kind of like it was a battle to kind of let go sometimes, and sometimes I have time to perfect the work as much as I can, you know, and as much as I want to. But in reality, most of the times we're working on deadlines, we're working on a very tight schedule, we're working under so much pressure that we have to let certain things go. So you kind of choose and pick your battles and move forward. And you have to embrace the practicality of everything that you have to do. Yes, again, if we go back to compliance and governance, I can create the most perfect document for governance, but it is not fit for purpose for this organization. It has to be imperfect for it to work, and then we enhance and we enhance, we enhance. So sometimes imperfection is actually needed.
I agree, I absolutely agree, and I think we can sometimes beat ourselves up about every single full stop and a comma, or, you know, that actually doesn't make the biggest difference in the reality. Thank you, Fatima. I'm going to move to our rapid fire questions I always do at the end, and it's the first thing that comes to your mind when I ask you. What did you wish you knew in your 20s that you know now?
That I am strong enough to go through difficult stuff.
What's the biggest misconception people have about law?
That it is very glamorous. My son told me that my work is very boring because all I do is sit and write. And that is so true.
Who do you look up to and why?
To be honest, there's not one person who I look up to. I look up to the idea of being a good person in life. That is what I aspire to be, day in, day out.
Which quote do you stand by, you find yourself always saying?
This too shall pass.
Good
and bad.
I like that. Worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, it's enough. You've done enough. According to who, I have no idea.
If you were to describe yourself in 3 words, what would you say?
I would say compassionate, courageous, and a bit sharp.
A personal setback you want to share that you've learned from the most?
Well, I've learned a lot through a lot of personal experiences, you know, Sarah, we're not going to get here. But I think every failure that I had to deal with, failed exams, failed business ideas, failed relationships, you learn so much out of it. You learn so much from that experience about yourself and how you want to carry yourself through the world.
And it shapes who you end up becoming, so that there's no regret of anything that we go through.
No.
Yeah. Fatima, a huge thank you for joining us today. I think what stands out to me mostly from this conversation is that law at the level Fatima is operating is not just about rules. It's not about judgment. There's so many things that go in. There's structure, there's responsibility, there's a whole 2 decades of experience that's come to get her where she is today, which is why she was able to so properly and articulately answer those questions of what really makes it happen, what goes on behind the scenes, what is actually important to clients, what can you let go, and what must you never compromise on. Thank you for joining us. You don't always see what goes on behind the scenes, you see the end results, and it's the point of Sarah Straight Up to bring and shine light on those who deserve it the most. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.